Let's start with Fast and Furious.
Yes!
Okay.
You want to start? Go.
I've always enjoyed the idea of the Fast and Furious films more than I've enjoyed the execution.
Okay.
But I do enjoy the idea very, very much. I think it's interesting if you think back in the 60s and 70s, the James Bond franchise was, you went to the cinema, those films, they took you on holiday and they showed you some beautiful people and some fancy gadgets and some, glamorous milieus.
Yeah.
To continue the French theme.
Yeah. Merci.
And it was all part of the fun,
Yeah.
and that was what those films could do for you. So I love the idea that there is another franchise that can still do that now, but with this very progressive, inclusive soul at the very, very building blocks of this series. Family is the word that comes up again and again and again. So it's something that feels relevant, not like a throwback, but it can still have that at its most basic sort of visceral level, that transporting nature that the Bond films had back then. And that's very much how I view these films. I think what's interesting is when you look as well at the progression of the series, back in Fast 5, where they broke out the bank vault and were dragging it down through the streets of Rio de Janeiro, I think it was.
Yeah.
That seemed to be the moment where they thought, okay, this isn't just about racing cars anymore. It's going to be about set pieces and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the films have, of course, since then gotten bigger and bigger. More cast, bigger explosions, wilder ideas. The problem is, around the time of number 6, it hit this tipping point where the craziness got so big that you started to lose the sense that what was happening in front of the camera, there was actually anything happening at all, and it wasn't just some CGI concoction. And, when you look at the success of films like John Wick recently, obviously the Raid films by Gareth Evans, and above all, Mad Max Fury Road, there's this idea that Western filmmakers are engaging again with this idea that actually doing stuff for real in front of the camera is a great way to hold the audience's interest. So I think when you come to Fast and Furious 8, having seen John Wick recently, having seen Mad Max Fury Road, the franchise feels weirdly on the back foot, even though it's a franchise that has traditionally been very, very at the cutting edge of what people are looking for. The story so far doesn't really matter, because at the start of every Fast and Furious film, they reshake the board and move people around. What you have in this one is Vin Diesel's character, Dominic Toretto, who's always been the heart of the team. He decides, for reasons that are revealed later in the film, he's strong-armed into helping this ingenious expert hacker, played by Charlize Theron, called Cipher, steal the Russian nuclear codes. And, obviously, why is he going to jeopardize the safety of the entire planet? Well, it must be for a very big reason, and this reason is teased out and teased out. So he turns to the dark side. Compensating, because this is how Fast and Furious works, you have Jason Statham's character, Deckard, who, by the way, 2 films ago murdered one of the original team. That's now forgiven and forgotten. That's in the past. He comes over to work with them, and his old rival, played by The Rock, and they just have to kind of rub along. And actually, they're not even bromance. It's kind of, what's the kind of enemy version of a bromance? Whatever that is, that's really what drives the core of the team now. Now, here is a clip from a scene in which The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and Jason Statham find themselves both locked in a prison, and they spark a prison riot purely, really, in order to get out of their cells and beat each other up.
I mean, do you really believe you could beat me in a straight-up old-fashioned fistfight?
Let me tell you something. Me and you, one-on-one, no one else around. I will beat your ass like a Cherokee drum.
Maybe one day we'll find out.
Oh, you better hope that day never comes.
Why's the door open? Get back to the cell!
It's just a malfunction.
Get back!
Just a malfunction.
It is infectious, right?
Well, I went to see it last night with my friend Nathan. We went to a screening at 9:30, which was rammed with Fast and Furious fans. And it was infectious. It was absolutely infectious. It was like being at a carnival. There was whooping, there was cheering, I found myself at one point when Jason Statham comes on screen of going, yeah, Statham! I was like, what am I doing?
You're like Thor in that Ragnarok trailer when Hulk bursts.
I know him! Yeah! Through work! It's like, yeah, totally.
I wish I knew him.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I was waiting for one point for a jumping shark, it was kind of, all it needed was a zombie, and every other genre of film is covered within it, basically. Look, it's just everything thrown at it.
I think the fact that they've worked out what to do with Statham.
Yeah.
Really speaks very well of what the franchise does well. Now, there's a scene late on, which I'm sort of loath to give away really what happens.
On the plane.
It's on a plane. It involves Statham acting alone in a way. And it's a tribute to, or it's kind of a throwback to a very famous action scene directed by John Woo in Hard Boiled, I think it was. And that shows that they've kind of worked out that you can have his charm and his sense of humour, but also his completely take no prisoners approach to combat. You can reconcile those and make them work together very beautifully. What I really was disappointed by is they rarely seemed like there was any real sense of peril because of this overload of CGI. You know, the director F. Gary Gray, he was the guy that did the Italian Job remake a while back, which was actually pretty good and used a lot of practical effects. In this one, there's a scene in which New York City becomes subject to this uprising of driverless cars who suddenly start. In fact, you said there was no said there was no zombies.
Yeah.
I think Charlize Theron even says one time it's zombie time or something like that. And all these kind of
See?
cars of their own accord start screeching around the place. And it's a great idea for a set piece, but because it is CGI, it looks like you're just watching this river of pixels winding through the city streets. And for me, you're kind of watching it thinking, yes, this is funny, it's creative, but I don't really feel anything's at stake. Then when you get to this set piece on a Russian ice floe, it's so clear that they've said, we need to do something that's like Mad Max, because Mad Max has done this so well. You know, I appreciate the fact that they're going there, but it does feel like the franchise is playing catch up. So, you know, for me, the scenes that work well, you've got the ice flow bit, you've got the street race in Havana that opens the film.
Oh, worst bit of the scene. I mean, why do they need the woman with no
What?
pants on starting the race? Come on. Oh, it's Fast and Furious.
It's Fast and Furious. There you go. You can't, you know, there are certain non-negotiables. I also think it's really interesting, you know, this is the first film they've made without Paul Walker, who of course passed away during the making of Number 7. They have, you know, they pay tribute to his character in the film, but they have fairly unsentimentally brought in a new white, blue-eyed, preppy, upstanding, law-abiding type played by Scott Eastwood to replace, you know, to fill the Paul Walker-sized hole on the team. So they are, you know, they're moving forward, they're progressing. What annoys me about the series, I know it's not made for critics, but I wish, because it's such a culturally important creation, that they would just kind of take that extra step and make these action scenes count for something as well as being so, you know, enjoyably wild and silly as they are.